Good morning, all. This is Optical Fiber Communication DET 3201. Course outcomes: the students will be able to understand the different communication media, various blocks and applications of optical fiber communication system. The students will be able to understand the optics rules and measure the optical fiber cable parameters. The students will be able to identify a suitable optical source for given application. The students will be able to identify suitable optical detector for the given application. The students will be able to identify suitable connectors and measure the losses in the optical fiber cable. The students will be able to understand architecture of optical networks for given applications. So let us discuss the characteristics of optical sources. As we know, there are various optical sources. We also use many of them. What are those optical sources? One is tube light. Second is filament bulb, bulb which is having filament. Then nowadays we are using fluorescent tube light as well as LED tube light. Okay. Then halogen lamp is there. So all these are optical sources we use. Now diode is also there and LED is also there. These are also optical sources. Now what is difference between the LED, fluorescent light, LED and laser diode? So that will clarify the selection of source for optical fiber communication. So fluorescent light is light in which there is a maybe CFL or older fluorescent light. CFL is having the coil like glass tube, and older fashioned fluorescent light is having the straight uh, tube, glass tube, in which the fluorescent material is internally coated, and when supply is made on, tube light is made on, the electrons collide on the internal glass tube, and uh, there is fluorescent material, and the fluorescent material absorb these electrons and again re-emit it, and during this process the light photon is emitted. So throughout the area of the fluorescent tube, light photons are emitted. Complete fluorescent tube is get uh, emit the light, radiate the light. Complete fluorescent tube radiate the light. Okay. So this is the situation. All fluorescent light tube surface radiates light. Okay. So this is the point to be remembered. Next thing, one thing, all the fluorescent light uh, tube area radiate the light. Second thing is electrons in the tube, fluorescent tube, strike on the fluorescent material that is coated inside the glass tube at any time randomly, and photon is generated randomly. So photons generated are random. This is second point to be noted and remember. Now Laser is there, in which laser diode, LED also is there, in which the LED diode and laser diode at the electrical charges are get converted into photons, and these laser diode and light emitting diode both are having very very small uh, area for radiation, volume for radiation in microns, whereas fluorescent tube is having very large area of photon emission. So this is first difference, area of emission. Second difference, LED is having random radiation that we will check afterwards, but laser is having the in phase radiation. Laser is having all the photons almost in phase. Okay. So this is the difference between the uh, light emitting diode, laser, as well as the fluorescent tube, filament bulb also. Then one more difference is there. Fluorescent tube emits light which is almost white color, and laser and LED emits the light with only one color. Okay, so this is a big difference because one color means one wavelength, and white color means all the wavelengths. In high school level, we have studied sunlight or natural light is beam is prism will separate out the wavelengths contained in light. Okay, and as sun emits white light, so white light contains all the wavelengths: red, yellow, orange, yellow, then green, blue, and violet. So all the visible wavelengths are present in the sunlight, sunbeam, which are separated using the prism. So we know the sunlight contains all the colors. So all visible spectrum is present in the white colored light. White light is a spectrum of collection of all the wavelengths. Okay, but LED and laser emits only one color. That means only one wavelength, single wavelength. So this is also one more big difference. Okay. Now, what do you mean by single color? It is called monochrome. Chrome means color. Monochrome, monochromatic. So light is monochromatic from laser diode and light emitting diode. Monochromatic means single color. Why single color? Because these semiconductor junctions emits only one wavelength. Practically, they are not emitting one wavelength, they are emitting the one central wavelength, and along with that some small amplitude neighboring wavelengths. But these spectra of neighboring wavelengths is very very small. It is having very small bandwidth, or in optics it is called line width. So if suppose this is the we can say graph. So light of all the wavelengths will have spectra like this, but monochromatic light will have something like this, very small bandwidth. So one wavelength is there, so suppose some lambda, and very neighboring some other small wavelength, small amount of wavelength. So this is called bandwidth or line width. So very small spectrum is emitted, whereas continuous spectrum will have this wavelength as well as this wavelength, and all are having equal amplitude. So this is continuous spectrum. Continuous spectrum emits all the wavelengths. Okay, and monochromatic emits only one wavelength or nearby some wavelengths, very small bandwidth. So that is the big difference in between uh, continuous spectra optical source and monochromatic optical source. Monochromatic optical source and continuous spectra optical source. So LED and laser are monochromatic optical source, and sun and fluorescent light and the normal light we are used for lighting houses and offices, these all are not monochromatic. They are having continuous spectrum. That means all the wavelengths are emitted by these sources. Okay, this is the difference in continuous spectrum source and monochromatic source. Okay. So incandescent light, fluorescent light are wide band continuous spectra sources. Okay. So this is the statement. Wide band continuous spectra sources. Incandescent light. Monochromatic coherent sources are light emitting diodes, LEDs. Monochromatic incoherent. Incoherent. Monochromatic means single color, one wavelength. But what is incoherent? So coherent and incoherent sources. When LED junction emits the photons, these photons are not in phase, not in direct single direction, and not in phase. So this is not in phase means incoherent. So what is in phase means all the photons will have same phasor relationship. So just like the students after class ends, they comes out the classroom and goes even in corridor, IOP corridor or any school corridor. They are having particular direction according to the corridor, but they are walking not in phase, almost not in phase. Some walks with little different speed. Some is walking with his friend. If two friends are talking and walking, they are in phase, but they are also not almost in phase. But suppose the same corridor is used by NCC students of our IOP Bato or military for parade, then that will be completely in phase. Everybody is having same direction, same speed, so phase relationship is maintained. So photons in LED are not maintaining phase relationship. They are having different direction, different time of radiation. So spatial as well as temporal time phase relationship is not maintained. Time phase relationship as well as space phase relationship is not maintained. Space phase relationship gives all photons same direction, Time phase relationship gives all photons same time of emission. So phasor relationship are partial as well as temporal. Temporal means time. So in LED, this phase relationship is not maintained. So it is incoherent. No phase relationship. LED spectrum is monochromatic. So like this, as shown in above figure, monochromatic. Single wavelength and some other wavelength. Very small line width is there. So it is monochromatic. Incandescent light is not monochromatic as well as no in coherent also. So wide band as well as continuous spectrum. So LED is not wide band, LED is monochromatic, single wavelength, but they are not coherent, they are incoherent LED sources. And third is laser sources. Laser sources. These laser sources are monochromatic as well as coherent sources. Monochromatic means single wavelength and coherent means in phase. All the photons are in phase. Okay? Photons are in phase. This is monochromatic and coherent. So these are the characteristic of optical sources. How optical sources are there? Optical sources are wide spectrum, continuous spectrum sources are there like incandescent lamps, and monochromatic incoherent sources are there like light emitting diode, and monochromatic coherent sources are there like laser. So LED as well as laser are can be used in the optical fiber communication, but incandescent lamps cannot be used in the optical fiber communication. Optical fiber communication requires monochromatic or and coherent sources. The coherency at up to certain level, if it is not maintained like LED, then also it will work in optical fiber communication. But monochromatic source is requirement. Okay. And these are the optical uh, source characteristics. Again, the LED are two types. One is for optical fiber communication, and other is for indicator panels. That we'll see afterwards. What is the small difference in both construction, manufacturing difference? So this uh, shows the major requirements of optical sources. So how the optical source should be there in optical fiber communication. So optical source should have the size and its configuration compatible with that optical fiber communication system. So incandescent light is size is having if it is CFL, then also it is having the very large size as compared to optical fiber communication system, because the optical fiber is a human hair-like diameter. Okay. And compact fluorescent light that coil is emitting, that coil surface area, or the you can say an emitting area volume approximately grossly, if you consider, that is in a few square of centimeters, or in incandescent tube light, older fashioned tube light also, the area is very large. Approximately length of the tube is 1 meter and diameter is maybe few centimeters. So total surface area may be very very large. And optical fiber communication system, the fiber is human hair comparison comparative. Compared to human hair, it is having the similar diameter. So optical fiber sources should be compatible in size as well as configuration to the uh, system. So size and configuration is to be compatible with the launching light, and light output to be highly directional. It is not only size compatible, it should be compatible with the uh, light output requirement. That should be source should be highly directional, because we have to maintain the optical beam for launching that beam into the optical fiber, isn't it? So if incandescent light is considered, so this tube radiates optical energy in all direction. So one point radiates in all direction, and there are many such points all over. Suppose maybe 100 centimeter or 60 70 centimeter, whatever the tube is there, and this diameter of tube, whatever it is. So this surface radiates in all direction, but source requirement is, should be such that it should make the beam of light. It should emit the beam of light in one direction, so that this beam of light will follow the acceptance cone and will be get launched into the optical fiber, so that the beam will maintain the critical angle at core cladding interface or more than critical angle, incidence angle, and all the beam will have, complete beam will have the propagation. Complete beam will have the propagation. So this is requirement. So to have all the optical energy launched, the propagation in the optical fiber, it should be made beam, and that beam is must be launched within the acceptance cone, and then that beam will make, all the beam portion part will make the angle equal to or more than critical angle at core cladding interface, and that beam completely will get propagated in the optical fiber. So it should be highly directional. So size and configuration is to be compatible, and it should be highly directional. Then what is second? It must accurately track electrical input. So it should be linear, isn't it? It should be linear. It must accurately track electrical input. Suppose electrical input is varying like this, okay, it should maintain the linear relationship, and it will generate the output very same as that of the input. So this is linearity. So whatever on input axis is there, same should appear at output axis. If it is linear, it will generate same. If it is non-linear, then at each amplitude different proportion is there. If the source is non-linear, then at each amplitude different proportion is maintained or given out. So the source must accurately track the electrical input and signal to, with minimum distortion and minimum noise. For that, source should be linear. So it must accurately track electrical input. That means source should be linear, and it should introduce minimum distortion and minimum noise into the output. Output is optical energy. Input is electrical energy to the source. Source is transducer. It converts electrical energy into optical energy. Similarly, the detector will be transducer which converts optical energy to electrical energy. The source is transducer which converts electrical energy to optical energy. So this transducer should be linear and should introduce minimum distortion and noise so that the input signal will be perfectly converted into the other type of the energy. So what is number three? Source should emit light at wavelengths where fiber has low losses. So source should be selected such that the fiber at that wavelength should have low losses. So as we know, fibers are having low losses in 1.7 to zero point 0.8 micrometer. This is the optical fiber communication window. So source should be such that it should emit the wavelength within that optical fiber communication window, that is 1.7 micrometer to zero point 0.8 micrometer, or 1700 nanometer to 800 nanometer, 1700 nanometer to 800 nanometer, 1.7 micrometer to zero point 0.8 micrometer. So source should be emitting the wavelength that should be within the optical window. So this is the wavelength, and such wavelength will give low loss in the optical fiber and low dispersion also, and the detector also should be selected at that wavelength so that detector will detect the optical light efficiently. That means whatever the source is emitting the wavelength, the detector should be of same wavelength so that detector will detect this optical energy with maximum efficiency. So detector will become efficient. If suppose source is of one wavelength and detector is having detection wavelength different, then detector will have very minimum or no output. It will not detect the photons of different wavelength. So detector should, to detect efficiently, it should match with source value. So this is the requirement of the source which matches the low loss wavelength of optical fiber and which matches the detector wavelength. So this is the requirement of the source. It should emit the light wavelength so that fiber has low losses, low dispersion, and detector are efficient at that wavelength. So this is requirement. Fourth is preferably capable of the source should be preferably capable of simple signal modulation over a wide bandwidth extending from audio frequency beyond the gigahertz. The modulation should be simple modulation. So whenever we are sending the optical energy, the modulation is there in the on the carrier. So some signal variation is there. So that signal variation is to be transmitted as the information. So whenever central wave is there, waveform is there, central wavelength is there. So that wavelength is transmitted as a carrier. If no magnitude, amplitude changes are there or on-off changes are there, so it is just simple carrier. But the information is sent over the optical fiber cable with the help of modulation by changing the amplitude of the light beam, by changing the phasor relationship. That means if continuous signal is sent or a digital signal is sent, then amplitude and phase are important to maintain. So this modulation, signal modulation, over a wide should be over wide bandwidth. It should be simple signal modulation, or wide bandwidth to cover the audio frequency to gigahertz range. All the frequency it should cover. Okay. So gigahertz range frequencies are required in the digital signals, and audio frequency will start in the continuous signal. Okay. So analog as well as digital transmission is possible with this source. Source should be preferably capable of simple signal modulation over wide bandwidth extending from audio frequencies to gigahertz frequencies. So these are the major requirements of the optical sources. That is, size and configuration should be compatible, launching the light, and lights should be so that it will become highly directional. And second is, source must accurately track the electrical input to and minimum distortion and noise will be introduced. And that for that tracking, source should be linear. And third is the source should emit the light at wavelengths where the fiber has low losses, low dispersion, as well as detector is efficient for that wavelength. And fourth is source should be preferably capable of simple signal modulation over a wide bandwidth extending from audio frequency to gigahertz range. So these are the major requirements. Also, continue the same major requirements of the source. The source must couple sufficient optical power to overcome attenuation in fiber connector and receive the adequate power for the detector. So whenever source is launching the optical power, this optical power get attenuated over the fiber, because we have seen in the problem solving yesterday or the day before that tutorial lectures in the theory also. Whenever we launch some amount of power into the fiber attenuates it and output power becomes lesser than the input power. Okay. So depending on the how much attenuation it offers, power input power and output power differs by very large amount. So source must couple sufficient optical power to overcome attenuation. Source should sufficiently launching the amount of power, optical power, so that it should overcome the attenuation. And whatever the required minimum output power is there, that should be available at the detector. There is also attenuation in the connectors that should also be overcome. One problem we have seen that connector splices are also introducing the loss, and fiber is also introducing loss, and we calculated the total attenuation by adding fiber attenuation as well as connector attenuations, isn't it? So source must couple sufficient optical power. Okay, sufficient optical power to overcome the attenuation. Which are the attenuation in system? Fiber as well as connector losses. These are the attenuation. So that the adequate power is available, is received at the detector. Okay, to the driver to drive the detector. So detector requires some minimum power to get driven. So that is to be given to the detector. So one problem we have solved. So to maintain the minimum detector power, how much is the input power, minimum of input power is required. That we have calculated. So next is source should have very narrow spectral bandwidth. Spectral bandwidth is called line width, isn't it? In order to minimize dispersion in the fiber. Okay. Source should have very narrow spectral bandwidth. It is called line width. Spectral bandwidth is called line width. In optical optics, the Bandwidth is called line weight. We do not call bandwidth here, we call line weight. So source should have very narrow line weight. Theoretically, source should emit only one wavelength. Practically, it is not possible. So, very small number of wavelength it should emit. So, line width should be very, very small in order to minimize dispersion in the fiber. So, if the bandwidth is more, dispersion will be more in the fiber. So, dispersion introduces losses. Number 7, source must be capable of maintaining a stable optical output unaffected by changes in ambient condition, temperature. So this is same which is applicable to all the semiconductor devices because sources we use in the optical fiber communications are semiconductor sources. We cannot use the other electrical sources or gas laser sources, etc. So we have to use semiconductor sources, and these semiconductor sources should have the stable output affected unaffected by ambient conditions like temperature. So as we know, semiconductor devices, whatever diode, transistors, and all other semiconductor devices, they are affected their performance function based on ambient condition temperature. They cannot operate beyond certain ambient conditions and temperature conditions. Basically, temperature conditions in ambient conditions. So, if the ambient temperature changes, the biasing condition changes accordingly. Okay, that we know. And we try to maintain make the or use the devices which are having less of effect of ambient conditions in semiconductor circuits. Similarly, here the source must be capable of maintaining stable output and unaffected by changes in ambient conditions like temperature. Suppose ambient temperature varies, then also the source must be capable of maintaining stable optical output and which is not unaffected by changes in ambient conditions. So this is the requirement. To maintain that ambient condition stability, the drivers are used in the uh, sources, basically for laser. And other requirements are also there, minimum operating electrical power, electric current or voltage. Also, the drivers are needed. And this this requirement is also there. That is, drivers are needed to have the stable operation, stability. So source should be stable to give the stable optical output unaffected by ambient conditions like temperature. Then 8 is source. It is to be comparatively cheap, highly reliable in order to compete with conventional transmission techniques. So overall communication system should be less in cost effective, so that if compared to the conventional transmission system, it will become cost effective. So all the components should be having minimum cost. So source should have comparatively cheaper and highly reliable also. Cost as well as reliability should be uh, beneficial towards the system. So cost should be less and it should be highly reliable. Okay. So it should be comparatively cheap and highly reliable. So these are the requirements. So these are the requirements. 8 number, cheaper and highly reliable for all the components, for all the systems, whether it should be electrical circuit or optical circuit. So these are all major requirements. So uh, Size and launching the beam is required. Optical fiber size is here like so. Size should be compatible. It should be linear to track accurately the electrical input with minimum distortion and noise. It should emit the wavelength for minimum losses in the optical fiber, minimum dispersion in the optical fiber, and high efficiency for the for the detector. It should be capable of simple signal modulation, and it should be modulate over a wide bandwidth extending from audio frequency beyond V bands. So it must couple sufficient optical power to overcome the attenuation. So its output source output should be sufficiently large so that fiber input will be launched sufficiently large so that this optical power will overcome the attenuation of fiber, then connector losses, and adequate sufficient power is uh, given to the detector, okay, at the receiver. And source should have very narrow spectral bandwidth in order to minimize dispersion. It should be monochromatic. Narrow linewidth means it should be monochromatic. And source must be capable of maintaining the stable output unaffected by changes in ambient conditions. Whatever the ambient condition temperature changes, source should operate stably. And it should be cheaper, it should be highly reliable. So monochromaticity is required for reducing the losses, like dispersion losses. Then principle of working of optical sources. As we know, optical energy is made up of small energy bundles. These are called photons. Okay. Photon are having the energy E is equal to H into F. Photon energy is E is equal to H into F or Hc upon lambda. So photon, if the light is monochromatic, that is having the single wavelength, all the photon will have same energy. If light is having single frequency, all the photon will have same energy. If wavelength is same, constant, then H and C are constant. So photon energy for all the photons will be constant, same. So what is requirement is all photons should have same packets of energy. Photon is a discrete package of energy or quanta. Okay, discrete packet or this quanta energy. So interaction of light with matter takes place in photons. Photons or light interact with light or matter. Matter here is semiconductor material. Semiconductor material, gallium arsenide. Silicon, germanium are not used in the optical devices because they do not match their uh, band gap energy, etc. And some other properties are not matching. So gallium arsenide alloys, etc. are used. So these are also semiconductors. So interaction of the light with matters takes place in photons. In case of photons, the or photons interact with light as well as matters. So photons get absorbed, photons get radiated, they get absorbed and re-radiated. The photon ejects the or captures out the energy, and this energy is also in form of light. Okay, photon. So this is called stimulated emission. So all these interactions, absorption, emission, all these interactions are taken place in the photons. Quantum theory suggests that atoms exist only in certain discrete energy level. So that we know. So only certain discrete energy levels are there. Okay. Conduction energy level, valence energy level, and below valence energy level, some discrete energy levels are there, isn't it? So out of all the discrete energy level, we always focus on valence energy level and conduction energy level. And valence energy level and conduction energy level are also discrete. They are not continuous. They are discrete. One value is for valence energy level, other value is for conduction energy level, and there is a gap in between conduction energy level and valence energy level in the atom. And that gap is called band gap, isn't it? Band gap energy band gap. So quantum theory suggests that atoms exist only in certain discrete energy states. That is true. That we have seen from high school level in physics of first year also. Absorption and emission of light causes atom to make a transition from one discrete state to other discrete state. Absorption and emission of light. Light is energy. Whenever transition from one discrete energy state to other is taken place, there is a exchange of energy in the atom, isn't it? That we know. What we call the atom is having electrons circulating or rotating around the nucleus, and these electrons are having different states of energy, and outermost orbit electrons are having the valence energy state in the atom, isn't it? We are calling it, we are saying it like this. Na? So, outermost electrons are having highest energy in which are rotating around the atoms. And these outermost electrons are having the energy level if we provide the energy to the outermost electrons to overcome the band gap. So if you provide the energy equal to band gap energy, the outermost electron will go into conduction state. To go the outermost electrons from valence state to conduction state, it absorbs the energy. So whatever is true in the electrical energy, they absorb electrical energy and go into conduction state after biasing. Same is true with the optical energy. They absorb the optical energy equal to band gap energy and go into from conduction state to valence state. Okay, same is applicable. So this requires absorption of the energy. If the energy equal to band gap energy is absorbed by the atom, that means it will release the outermost electron from valence state to conduction state. And electron is now free for conduction. So electron is detached from the atom structure and can freely conduct the electricity. So this is happened due to absorption of energy. Now suppose one electron in the conduction state, and that conduction state electron goes into valence state, into orbit. So it jumps from conduction state to valence state. When electron jumps from conduction state to valence state, it emits energy. What amount of energy it emits? Band gap amount of energy, band gap energy. So when electron jumps from higher state to lower state, it emits energy. And in case of the optical devices, the energy emitted is equal to photon energy, and the photon is emitted. So this is absorption and emission of the light causes atom to make a transition from one discrete energy to another discrete level. Okay. So this is the conduction state energy, and this is the valence state energy, EV and EC, and then this is the band gap energy, EG, band gap energy. When electron is in the orbit, it is an EV. When electron has to jump from here to here, sorry, here, when electron has to jump from valence state to conduction state, in that case, it has to absorb the energy equal to Eg. Okay. And when electron is present in EC, it is in the free state, conduction state, it is possessing energy equal to EC. So when electron jumps from conduction state to valence state, it has to release some amount of energy, and that is equal to band gap energy. So this is the theory which says whenever the electrons are transiting in the atom from one state to other, conduction to valence and valence to conduction, they absorb and emit the light. Okay. So absorption and emission of light causes atom to make a transition from discrete state to other state. So if absorption of the photon is there, it transits from valence state to conduction state, and if radiation of the photon is there, it has to transit from conduction state to valence state. Okay. So this is the principle of working of optical sources. What are the different things they involve? They are having photons of HF energy. Photons is a discrete photon is a discrete packet of energy or quantum of energy. Interaction of the light with the matter takes place in the photon state. Quantum theory suggests atoms are exist only in certain discrete energy states, and absorption and emission of light causes atom to make a transition from one discrete energy state to another discrete energy state. So these are the principle of operation of sources. So same thing is shown here, principle of working of optical sources. So one is E2, this one is E1. So energy state, or this we can call as valence state energy, this we call it as conduction state energy, and the difference we call as band gap energy. Okay. Now in figure A, there is absorption. In figure B, there is a spontaneous emission. In figure C, there is a stimulated emission. So this is figure A, this is figure B, and this is figure C. So suppose this black dot which is shown here, this is electron. Electron is present now in, I am showing it with cross also so that it will become more visible. So electron is now in the valence state. So whenever external optical photon is falling on it, this is optical photon. Okay. Whenever the optical photon HF should be equal to Eg is falling on this atom, it is get absorbed. So this is absorption. This is get absorbed, photon get absorbed, and the energy is given to the charge particle to go into one energy state to other energy. So this is initial stage. After absorption of the photon, this is the final state. So electron from valence state, it goes to conduction state. Electron goes to conduction state. Okay. So this is the absorption of the photon. So what is the emission then? Initially electron is in the conduction state, and it jumps from conduction state to valence state. It is jumping here and it goes into the valence state by giving out the photon equal to HF, which is equal to gap energy. It is releasing energy equal to band gap energy. So it releases the photon equal to amount of energy equal to band gap energy. So this is emission, which is spontaneous. One electron is in conduction state, spontaneously it jumps into the valence state without any external cause or external effect, automatically. Okay. The electron own jumps from conduction state to valence state. It is spontaneous emission. Now third case, stimulated emission. Whenever there is a electron in valence state, there is one more conduction state. An electron is present in valence state, and electron is having the state in which it can go to the valence state. So difference in between these two states is band gap energy Eg. So electron can go to a conduction state and sorry, this is a conduction state and this is valence state. Electrons can go from valence state to conduction state to valence state. And while going from conduction to valence or valence to conduction, it has the energy difference of band gap energy, Eg. Either it has to absorb the Eg energy or emit the Eg energy. So now presently electron is in the conduction state. So this electron is in conduction state and some external photon which is having the energy equal to Eg, band gap energy, some external photon which is having exactly energy equal to band gap energy is crossing this charge particle in conduction, electrical particle in the electron in the conduction state. So whenever the photon comes near to the atom or this uh, conducting electron, this electron energy equal to Eg is taken out from the electron by this photon. This photon stimulates the charge particle to give out the photon, or the energy is stimulated by this energy, resonated by this energy to get radiated. And when the energy is getting radiated, the charge particle electron has to jump from conduction state to valence state. This jump is due to the external photon. So this is the external photon, isn't it? So this external photon makes this jump happen from conduction state to valence state. So it is not spontaneous. It is stimulated jump, stimulated emission. As it jumps from conduction state to valence state, there is emission of one more photon. So this is a stimulated photon. Original photon is also having the band gap energy HF is equal to Eg, and emitted electrons of course have the energy equal to band gap energy. So two photons of same energy with same speed, with same direction and with same phase relationship will be now present, get radiated. Okay, so these are the two photons. So one photon is stimulating photon on which is stimulated emission photon, emitted photon. So this process is called stimulated emission. One is spontaneous emission. Spontaneous emission takes place randomly as at its own, and stimulated emission takes place due to the external photon. Okay. So there is absorption in which the charge particle jumps from valence state to conduction state, and to jump from valence state to conduction state, the charge particle or atom requires energy equal to gap energy. And this energy, if externally provided to the atom or charged particle, electron, then it will absorb that energy and jump. This electron will outermost uh, orbit electron will jump from valence state to conduction state. So this absorption of external photon is the phenomena called absorption, which absorbs one photon with HF equal to gap energy, and in that absorption the energy is possessed by the electron, which is jumping from valence state to conduction state. The energy of the electron increases from valence state to conduction state. Okay. So this is absorption. In spontaneous emission, there is a charged particle electron in conduction state, and the charged particle electron jumps from conduction state to valence state by its own, randomly, without any external effect, without any external interference. It jumps from conduction state to valence state. As it changes the state, conduction to valence, it has to release the amount of energy equal to Eg. Eg is Ec up minus Ev, isn't it? Eg is Ec minus Ev. How much Eg? Eg is conduction state energy minus valence state energy. So this amount of energy it has to release. It releases that amount of energy in the form of photon, HF, equal to Eg, and goes from conduction state to valence state. This is spontaneous emission. Now, third case, there is an electron in the conduction state and one external photon packet of energy comes near to this atom in atomic structure, or the electron which is in the conduction state, and it makes that electron release the energy equal to photon energy. Whenever the electron releases the energy equal to photon energy, gap energy, the electron has to jump from conduction state to valence state, and it jumps from conduction state to valence state. This is due to the external photon. That's why it is called stimulated emission. That emits the another photon. So external photon is having the energy HF equal to Eg. Emitted photon is also having the HF equal to Eg of that material, same material. Both are having same photon energy. Both are in the same direction because the stimulated photon takes the emitted photon in same direction due to resonance, and they are having same phasor relationship also. Okay. So stimulated emission is monochromatic and coherent. Stimulated emission is monochromatic and coherent. Why monochromatic? Chrome color is due to same amount of energy. HF is Hc upon lambda. Okay, so same amount of wavelength are there. Both photons will have same wavelength. Same wavelength means same color. Wavelength is color, isn't it? Red light will have different wavelength. Yellow light will have different wavelength. Blue light will have different wavelength. Violet light will have different wavelength. Red is a zero point 0.4 nano micrometer and violet is zero point 0.7 micrometer, isn't it? Or red is zero point 0.7 and violet is zero point 0.4. Red must be zero point 0.7 and violet must be zero point 0.4 micrometer, because red comes first in the spectrum and violet afterwards. As we go from left side of the spectrum to the right side of the spectrum, frequency go on increasing and wavelength go on decreasing. So red comes first on left side of the spectrum. So its frequency must be lesser, but wavelength should be longer. And then violet comes afterwards in the right side of the spectrum. Frequency increases but wavelength decreases. So red visible light is having zero point 0.4 micrometer and sorry 0.7 micrometer wavelength and Violet is having zero point 0.4 micrometer. Wavelength is decreasing. Okay. Here, both the photon are having same energy, so both the photon are having same wavelength. If wavelength is same, just like red and violet, wavelengths are different, color are different. They are not same chrome, different chrome. Here the wavelength are same means color are same. They are monochromatic. So these photons are monochromatic and they are having same direction as well as same phase relationship. They are having same phase relationship. Therefore, they are coherent. So monochromatic as well as coherent. Stimulated emission emits monochromatic as well as coherent. So it is observed in laser. Stimulated emission is observed in laser. So what is laser? Light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. Light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. So laser short form is LASER. Light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. In laser, amplification is there, stimulated emission is there, and radiation takes place due to that. So stimulated emission is observed in laser. So laser output, laser emits coherent and monochromatic. Monochromatic as well as coherent light. And in LED, spontaneous emission is observed. LEDs, spontaneous emission is observed. Just like the simulated emission lasers. So it is short form. Laser is short form. LASER. Short form. In short form, we write L capital, E capital, D capital. Similarly, we should write LASER. But in this theory, uh, so many times we are using the laser. So LED and laser are used like words, isn't it? Laser, LED, like this. So no problem. So stimulated emission is observed in the laser diodes, and spontaneous emission is observed in the light emitting diodes. Okay. So light emitting diode is having the monochromatic light. Monochromatic light is there. Why monochromatic light is there in the LED? Because whatever the number of photons are emitted, all photons are emitted due to emission of same band gap energy of the material. Same band gap energy transition from conduction to valence transition takes place because material is same. Every time transition emits the same energy, is equal to HF or HF energy equal to HF. Easy. So band gap energy is emitted for each photon will have same energy. If each photon is having same energy, same frequency or same wavelength will be there. HF or HC upon lambda. Same wavelength is observed, isn't it? So HF or HC upon lambda. F is same, lambda is same. All the photons each time same energy is there. So LED is monochromatic, but this is not coherent because each time this transition takes spontaneously, randomly, at any time, so no phase relationship of one photon to other photon is observed. No phase relationship of one photon to other photon is there. So it is incoherent. LED is incoherent but monochromatic. But laser is monochromatic as well as coherent. Coherent पण आहे monochromatic. Monochromatic single color, single wavelength is monochromatic. Coherent, all the photons are in phase. It is coherent. And LED is monochromatic, single wavelength, single color. But it is not coherent. It is incoherent. Incoherent. So all the photons are not having the phasor relationship. Phasor relationship. So these are the differences in LED and laser. And these are the three processes: absorption, spontaneous emission, and stimulated emission observed in the optical devices. Out of these, absorption is widely or majorly observed in the detectors. So this phenomena absorption is for detector principle. But absorption also takes place in the sources only. But very less absorption takes place. Sources works on spontaneous emission and stimulated emission. Sources works on spontaneous emission and stimulated emission because sources emit and not absorb. The sources are working on spontaneous emission and stimulated emission. Okay. So this is the these are all working principles of uh, optical sources. Am I audible till now? Am I audible till now? ऐकू येते आतापर्यंत? आवाज आहे का? ये चालू कनेक्टिव्हिटी चालू आहे का? ओके, थँक यू. सुयोग, अक्षय, अथर्व, शुभम, मनीष, थँक यू. So today we have seen uh, different requirements, the characteristics of the sources, the requirements, how the sources should be in the optical fiber communication, and what are the characteristics of the optical fiber communication, and what are the various processes, mechanisms by which optical emission takes place, isn't it? So very quick rewind we'll have. What are the characteristics of the optical sources? Optical sources may be wideband or continuous spectrum sources like incandescent light. So all the wavelengths are present. So all the wavelengths combined together will become white, isn't it? White light. So what is white light? White light contains all the spectrum. आपण एखाद्या डिस्कला वेगवेगळे सगळे स्पेक्ट्रम मधले कलर लावले आणि ते कागदाची डिस्क जोरात रोटेट केली तर इट बिकम्स व्हाईट. This experiment you might have done in the high school level or prism experiment. So all the wavelengths are present, it becomes continuous spectra, wide band, and it is emitted by incandescent light. Monochromatic incoherent sources are light emitting diodes. Monochromatic incoherent, they are not coherent. Monochromatic as well as coherent. Monochromatic and coherent sources, lasers. Okay, so this is the difference between laser and LED. LED is only monochromatic, not coherent, but laser is monochromatic as well as coherent. So what are the major requirement? Source size should be such that the human hair-like small fiber is there in which light will be launched. Okay. It should be compatible, launching light, and light should be highly directional because the fiber is very small. Human hair like small fiber, and it must accurately track the electrical input. For that, it should be linear with minimum distortion, minimum noise. It should emit light wavelengths where the fiber has low losses. So within the optical communication window, it should emit with low dispersion, and detector should have the same wavelength. Whatever the detector connected, same should be the source. And it should be having preferably simple signal modulation with for modulation for the signal of all the bandwidths from audio to gigahertz. It must be coupling the sufficient optical power so that the minimum required power will be reached to the detector, and power will overcome input power launch will overcome the attenuation due to the fiber due to the connector losses. Then next is it should have narrow spectral bandwidth line width in order to reduce the dispersion. Next is it must be capable of maintaining stable output and it should not get affected by ambient conditions like temperature. Next is it should be comparatively cheaper and highly reliable, cost effective and reliable. So these are the requirements. So what are the working principle? We know light is in the form of photon. Photon is having the energy hf or hc upon lambda. Photon is in the discrete packet of the energy. The interaction of light with matter always takes place like absorption and emission of photons. So matter is here semiconductor material, maybe gallium arsenide, phosphide, or indium, etc. The quantum theory says that the atom exists in certain discrete energy state that we know, and our outermost energies are conduction and valence energy. Absorption and emission of light causes the atom to make transitions from discrete energy state. That also we know. Whenever the charged particle in the conduction state and it is jumping from conduction to valence state, it has to emit the light, and whenever the charged particle in the valence state, it has to absorb the light and energy and go into conduction state. And this energy is band gap energy. And here in optical devices, it is in the photon form. So, energy state diagram we can use to understand the working principle of sources as well as detectors. So absorption is there, spontaneous emission is there, stimulated emission is there. Absorption is broadly observed in the detectors, but there is absorption, very small absorption in the sources also. The spontaneous emission, randomly, spontaneously emission of the photons takes place, and this spontaneous emission is emitting the monochromatic light because the material is having constant band gap energy, and emission of the photon is having photon energy hf equal to band gap energy easy. So band gap energy do not change for this material, so all the photons are having same energy value, hf value. So same energy photons are same color photons, same wavelength photons are monochromatic. So the spontaneous emission is monochromatic, but emission is random, spontaneous. They it is incoherent, not in phase. So this is observed in LED. Okay, monochromatic and incoherent. So if the external photon stimulates to jump from higher energy state to lower energy state, emitting the uh, one more photon. So original stimulating photon and one more photon, both are traveling then in same phase relationship. Phasor values of both the photons are same, direction of both the photons are same, and the energy value equal to band gap energy are also same. HF is also same. Then as energy is same, wavelength is same, the photons are monochromatic. As they are having same direction and same phasor relationship, they are coherent. So here monochromatic and coherent photons are emitted in the stimulated emission, and these are observed in the laser line. Stimulated emission, they are mostly broadly observed in the majorly observed in the laser line. So absorption takes in detector, stimulated emission takes in LED, and sorry, spontaneous emission takes in LED, and stimulated emission is taking place in laser diodes. Okay. So I think we'll discuss the remaining theory in the next lectures. Okay. Thank you. Any doubt if you want to ask, you can ask. Okay? So I think till now I am audible. We'll meet tomorrow. Thank you.